The day my mother died, my sister hugged me and whispered, "Don't worry, Daniel. I'll take care of everything." I believed her. She was my sister. I never imagined those words would eventually cost me the home I had spent 22 years paying for. 6 months after my mother's funeral, I received a letter from a lawyer saying I had 30 days to leave the house I had lived in since childhood. I thought it was a mistake. Then I saw the name on the property documents. My own sister had sold the house and she had convinced everyone in our family that I had given her permission. My name is Daniel Carter, and for most of my life, I believed my family was the one place where I would always be safe. I was the oldest of 3 children. My younger sister, Rebecca, was always the charming one. She could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with everyone loving her. My younger brother, Jason, was different. He stayed away from family arguments and rarely took sides. I was the one who stayed home. When my father died, I was 27. My mother was devastated. She couldn't manage the mortgage by herself, so I moved back home. I worked during the day and took evening shifts whenever I could. For years, I paid most of the household bills. I never complained. It was my family. Then, after nearly 2 decades, my mother became seriously ill. Rebecca moved back into town. At first, I was grateful. I thought I finally had someone who could share the responsibility. But slowly, Rebecca started taking control of everything. She handled my mother's appointments. She organized the paperwork. She began receiving my mother's mail. Whenever I asked about something, she'd smile and say, "Daniel, don't worry. I've got it handled." I trusted her. That was my first mistake. A few months before my mother died, she called me into her bedroom. She was weak, but completely clear-minded. She took my hand and said, "Promise me you won't let this family fall apart after I'm gone." I promised. Then she said something else. "This house is supposed to stay in the family." I nodded. I didn't ask questions. I assumed there would be a proper will. After she passed away, Rebecca handled the funeral arrangements. She told me Mom had left instructions that she wanted Rebecca to manage the estate. I didn't object. I was grieving. I didn't want to think about money. I didn't want to fight with my sister. At the funeral, Rebecca stood beside me and cried harder than anyone. She told relatives, "Daniel has done so much for Mom. He deserves this house." I believed she meant it. 6 months later, I received a letter. It came from a law office. I opened it at the kitchen table. The first sentence made no sense. It said I was required to vacate the property within 30 days. I read it again. Then again. I called the number on the letter. The attorney asked me, "Are you Daniel Carter?" "Yes." "Did you authorize the sale of the property?" I laughed. "What sale?" There was silence. Then he said, "Mr. Carter, the house was sold 3 months ago." My hands started shaking. "Sold to whom?" He gave me the name, Rebecca Carter. "My sister." I immediately called her. She answered calmly, "Daniel, I was going to tell you." "Tell me what?" "The house had to be sold." "Why?" "Mom had debts." I knew that wasn't true. My mother had medical bills, but I had already paid most of them. Then Rebecca said something that I will never forget. "You told me I could handle everything. I told you to handle Mom's funeral. I never gave you permission to sell the house." She became angry. "Don't make this difficult." That sentence told me everything. I hired an attorney. We started investigating. And that's when we discovered the real betrayal. Rebecca had changed several estate documents shortly before our mother died. She had also convinced our brother Jason that I had agreed to sell the house. Jason had even signed a statement saying I knew about the sale. I confronted him. He looked embarrassed. "I thought you were okay with it." "Why would I be okay with losing Mom's house?" Rebecca had told him that I was planning to take the house for myself. She had told relatives that I wanted to cut everyone else out. She had created an entire story. And somehow, everyone believed her. Then our attorney found something even more disturbing. The house had been sold for far less than its actual market value. And the beer was connected to Rebecca's husband. She wasn't simply selling the family home. She was trying to move the money somewhere nobody would notice. But she had made one mistake. She had forgotten about an old storage box in my mother's bedroom. Inside were years of handwritten notes, bank records, and letters. And among those papers was a letter my mother had written only weeks before her death. It said, "The house must never be sold without Daniel's written approval. He has sacrificed more for this family than anyone knows." My attorney looked at me. "This changes everything." The case went to court. Rebecca denied everything. She said Mom had wanted her to have the house. She said I was bitter. She said I had abandoned the family. Then our attorney presented the documents, the financial records, the suspicious sale, the altered paperwork, and finally, my mother's handwritten letter. The courtroom became completely silent. Rebecca stared at the paper. For the first time, she had nothing to say. The judge eventually ruled that the sale could not stand. The house was returned to the estate. But by then, something much more important had already been lost. Trust. After the hearing, Jason approached me. "I'm sorry," he said. I looked at him. "You believed her without asking me." "I know. And that's what hurt the most." He started crying. "I should have trusted you. I didn't know what to say. Because forgiveness is easy to talk about when someone has hurt you. But rebuilding trust is different. It takes time." Months later, I moved out of the house. Everyone expected me to keep it. Instead, I sold it. I divided the money according to my mother's wishes. Then I kept only one thing, a small wooden box that had belonged to her. Inside was a photograph of the three of us as children. Rebecca, Jason, and me. We were standing in front of that same house, smiling. Before money, before lies, before betrayal. I eventually forgave my brother. But I never rebuilt the relationship I once had with Rebecca. Not because I hated her. Because I finally understood something my mother had tried to teach me. Being family doesn't automatically make someone loyal. Sometimes the person sitting beside you at the dinner table is the same person quietly, planning how to take everything from you. And sometimes protecting your peace means accepting that a relationship has already changed. I spent 22 years protecting that house because I thought it represented my family. But in the end, I realized the house was never the family. The people who stood beside you when there was nothing to gain, that was the family. And when the money disappeared, the house nearly disappeared, and the truth finally came out. I learned it exactly who was standing beside me. If someone in your own family betrayed you for money, would you forgive them more? Would you walk away forever? Tell me honestly in the comments.